This week in Sharia, Sunday 10th of April 2016, Victoria Wasteney, an NHS employee who was disciplined for giving Christian literature to a Muslim woman. She was charged with harassing and bullying this Muslim woman. The NHS Foundation disciplined her. She appealed. It went to court. The discipline was upheld. It was appealed all the way to the top. And now, if you give Christian literature to a Muslim, you are guilty of harassment. Does that count for the Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door? Does that count for anybody handing out a leaflet on the street? Trying to lead a Muslim away from Islam contradicts the Treaty of Umar on Reliance of the Traveller 0011.10. 3. Leads a Muslim away from Islam. The Caliph chooses between four alternatives mentioned above in connection with prisoners of war, 0914. Now, giving literature to a Muslim could be misconstrued as trying to lead a Muslim away from Islam. The Treaty of Umar is the treaty of the Kafir and what you will live under. Our courts are already applying the Treaty of Umar to us. We are being, bit by bit, transformed into a Sharia state. Now, I was in church earlier today and talking about this subject by a lady who was running a petition against Christian genocide. And she, at the end, turned round and said, why can't our leaders see what is happening? Why can't they see when we can see, when millions of us in the country can look at YouTube and Google words and research the Quran and Islam, and yet our leaders seem totally blind to what is going on? Well, in 1974, a Palestinian Christian wrote a book. Edward Said, Orientalism. And within this book, Edward casts aside all previous studies on Islam by presidents and men with much bigger brains than myself. Just shoves it to one side and blames all the problems on the white imperialists and the Jews of Israel. Now, the racism of the white fits very snugly with the racism of the far left. The Socialist Workers' Party picks up this racism and repeatedly says, white racism, white imperialism, white Israel this, Israel that, even to the point that they're saying that Israel killed 10,000 people during the last raids. Utter nonsense. This book is the foundation of all post-colonial studies. This is why white racism is allowed. This book is why Israel is blamed for everything. Now, the man was a Palestinian Christian. He doesn't even know the Quran. He might have lived next door to some really nice Muslims, but they're not really Muslims, are they, as we all know. So, Edward Said also wrote a book about reporting Islam. I think it was called that. And in that book, he describes how the negative press of the Iranian Revolution distorted the West's impression of Islam by depicting them as book-burning savages, because they were. Oh, and look how much that has helped the Taliban women. And look how much it has helped the women in Iraq and Syria. Edward Said needs throwing into the bin of history because it's fiction. There are white racists. But the problems with Islam is not because of white racism, it's because of Islam. And bit by bit, we must make our leaders aware. Edward Said, Orientalism is bollocks.